Welcome, the spicy lady. Never interrupt your enemy when he or she is making a mistake. Niccolo Machiavelli. Most people think manipulators are defeated through arguments, exposure, or confrontation. But real life rarely works that way. The truth is, some people are highly skilled at twisting words, playing the victim, and turning every conflict into an opportunity to regain control. The harder you fight them directly, the stronger they often become. This is where the spicy Lady Sigma takes a different path. She understands that not every battle deserves a public showdown. She knows that warning a manipulator often gives them time to prepare their next move. Instead of reacting emotionally, she observes carefully. Instead of rushing to prove a point, she studies patterns. While others are focused on winning the argument, she is focused on understanding the game. What makes this approach so powerful is that it is built on patience, self-control, and psychological awareness. It is not about revenge. It is not about being cold. It is about recognizing manipulation before it takes root and responding in ways that quietly remove its power. I end today's video. We will explore Machiavelli's 9 rules that reveal how spicy Lady Sigma outsmarts manipulators without unnecessary drama or confrontation. Stay with me until the end because the final rule may completely change the way you deal with difficult people and hidden manipulation in everyday life. Before we get started, I want to take a moment to appreciate every one of you in this amazing community. Thank you for your constant support, for watching, liking, sharing, and dropping your comments. I truly notice and value it all. Now, let's begin. Number 1. Understand that some battles are recruitment tactics. Not every conflict is meant to be won. Some are designed to pull you into endless drama. One of the most powerful lessons a spicy Lady Sigma learns is that not every conflict is actually about solving a problem. Sometimes the real goal is to recruit you into chaos. This is a mistake many people make. They assume every disagreement deserves a response. Every accusation deserves a defense. Every insult deserves a comeback. But the spicy Lady Sigma sees something others often miss. Some people are not looking for answers. They are looking for participants. Think about it. Have you ever met someone who always seems to be surrounded by drama? There is always a new enemy, a new argument, or a new crisis. You listen to their stories and notice a pattern. Different faces, different situations, same outcome. That is because for some people, conflict is not an accident. It is a lifestyle. The spicy Lady Sigma understands that the moment she accepts an invitation into unnecessary drama, she becomes part of someone else's game. Suddenly her time, energy, and emotions are being spent on battles that produce nothing of value. Imagine a coworker constantly trying to provoke you with subtle comments. They want a reaction. They want an argument. They want a scene. Most people take the bait because they feel the need to prove a point. The spicy Lady Sigma notices the trap. Instead of fighting, she stays focused on her work and lets results speak louder than emotions. What makes this approach powerful is that it requires discipline. Walking away from pointless conflict often takes more strength than engaging in it. Anyone can react. Few people can remain calm when provoked. The deeper truth is that every battle has a cost. Some cost your peace. Some cost your reputation. Some cost years of emotional energy. Wise people do not ask, can I win this fight? They ask, is this fight worth joining in the first place? That question alone can save you from countless regrets. The spicy Lady Sigma knows that protecting her peace is not weakness. It is strategy. She understands that the greatest victories are often the conflicts she never allowed herself to be recruited into. Number 2. Watch how they treat people who can't benefit them. A person's true nature often appears where there is no reward. One of the smartest things a spicy Lady Sigma understands is that people reveal their true character in moments they think nobody is paying attention. Anyone can be charming when there is something to gain. Anyone can be polite when an opportunity is on the table. The real test comes when there is no reward, no advantage, and no audience watching. This is where masks begin to slip. Many people spend too much time listening to what others say about themselves. They hear promises, impressive stories, and carefully crafted images. The spicy Lady Sigma pays attention to something deeper. She watches behavior. Imagine going to a restaurant with someone who seems kind, respectful, and friendly. They speak beautifully to you. smile often, and say all the right things. Then a waiter accidentally makes a small mistake. Suddenly, their tone changes. They become rude, impatient, and disrespectful. In that moment, you learn more about them than you could from 100 conversations. Why? Because kindness shown to powerful people can be strategy. Kindness shown to people who have nothing to offer is character. The same principle applies everywhere. Watch how someone treats the cleaner at work. Watch how they speak to customer service staff. Watch how they respond to people who cannot advance their career, increase their status, or make their life easier. A manipulator often treats people like tools. If someone is useful, they receive attention and respect. The moment they stop being useful, they are ignored, dismissed, or treated poorly. The spicy Lady Sigma notices these patterns early. She understands that today's observer can become tomorrow's target. If someone constantly mistreats people beneath them, eventually that behavior will surface elsewhere. Wisdom is not found in how people perform when the spotlight is on them. Wisdom is found in noticing who they become when the spotlight disappears. That is where true character lives. And that is where the spicy Lady Sigma finds the answers most people miss. Number 3. Let them overestimate their intelligence. Nothing is more dangerous to a manipulator than confidence without caution. One of the biggest mistakes people make when dealing with manipulators is showing their hand too early. The moment they realize you understand what they are doing, they become more careful, more calculated, and much harder to read. The spicy Lady Sigma understands this, which is why she does not rush to expose every trick she notices. Instead, she watches. Manipulators often have one weakness that eventually becomes their downfall. They think they are smarter than everyone around them. They become so confident in their ability to control situations that they stop being cautious. They start believing their own illusion. And that is exactly where they become vulnerable. The spicy Lady Sigma does not waste energy trying to convince a manipulator that she sees through them. She allows them to believe they are in complete control. While they are busy feeling clever, she is busy paying attention. For example, imagine someone at work who constantly takes credit for other people's ideas. At first, it seems random, but after observing for a while, you notice a pattern. They always appear when recognition is near. They always attach themselves to successful projects. They always disappear when responsibility arrives. Most people would confront them immediately. The spicy Lady Sigma does something different. She studies the pattern, because patterns are more valuable than promises. Patterns are more honest than words. Over time, she learns exactly how they operate. She knows when they will speak, what they will do, and even how they will react when challenged. What once looked like intelligence now looks predictable. That is the irony many manipulators never understand. The more convinced they are of their own brilliance, the less attention they pay to their mistakes. Wisdom is not proving you are the smartest person in the room. Wisdom is understanding people so clearly that their next move no longer surprises you. The spicy Lady Sigma knows that patience reveals what confrontation often hides. While others are distracted by the performance, she is quietly studying the script. And once you know the script, the ending becomes much easier to predict. Number 4. Never reveal the full map. Manipulators gather information like thieves gathering keys. One of the most underrated forms of wisdom is knowing that not everyone needs access to your entire story. Many people talk too much, too soon. They share their plans, their fears, their next moves, and even their weaknesses with people they barely know. They mistake openness for trust and familiarity for loyalty. Then they are surprised when their words are later used against them. The spicy Lady Sigma understands something that experience teaches the hard way. Information is valuable. Once it leaves your mouth, you no longer control where it goes or how it is used. This is why she never reveals the full map. That does not mean she is dishonest. It does not mean she plays games or hides behind secrets. It simply means she understands that access should be earned. Think about it. Have you ever told someone about a dream you were excited about only to receive doubt, criticism, or subtle discouragement? Suddenly, the energy that once fueled you begins to fade. Not because your goal changed, but because you gave the wrong person a front row seat to something that was still growing. Manipulators are especially skilled at collecting information. They ask innocent-sounding questions. They seem curious. They seem interested. But over time, they begin gathering details about your insecurities, ambitions, relationships, and emotions. Later, those details become tools. The spicy Lady Sigma notices this pattern. When someone constantly asks questions but rarely reveals anything meaningful about themselves, she pays attention. She understands that some people are not seeking connection. They are conducting research. That is why she shares with intention. She talks about what is necessary. She reveals what serves the moment. She keeps certain goals private until they are strong enough to stand on their own. There is a powerful lesson here. Not every person deserves a backstage pass to your life. Not every conversation requires complete transparency. Wisdom is knowing the difference between being open and being exposed. The spicy Lady Sigma understands that privacy is not about hiding who you are. It is about protecting what matters until the right people have earned the right to see it. And in a world where information is often treated carelessly, that protection becomes a quiet form of strength. Number 5. Study their needs. Not their words. Manipulators lie through language, but reveal themselves through hunger. Watch what they need. One of the biggest mistakes people make is listening too closely to what someone says while paying very little attention to what someone needs. Words can be rehearsed. Words can be polished. Words can be carefully designed to create a certain impression. But needs are much harder to hide. The spicy Lady Sigma understands this. She knows that if you want to understand a person's true motives, stop focusing only on their promises and start paying attention to their hunger. What are they constantly chasing? Attention, control, admiration, sympathy, status. The answer often reveals more than anything they could ever say. Think about someone who constantly claims they hate drama. Yet somehow every week they are involved in a new conflict. Different people, different situations, same outcome. Their words say one thing. Their needs reveal something completely different. What they truly crave may not be peace. It may be attention. The same pattern appears everywhere. Some people constantly present themselves as generous and caring. But the moment their efforts go unnoticed, they become resentful. Suddenly, their kindness disappears. That tells you their real need was not helping others. It was recognition. The spicy Lady Sigma watches for these patterns because she understands a powerful truth. Every person has a hunger that influences their behavior. The manipulator's greatest weakness is often the very thing they cannot stop needing. A person addicted to praise becomes predictable when praise is withheld. A person obsessed with control becomes emotional when they lose influence. A person who lives on sympathy becomes uncomfortable when others stop rescuing them. This is why the spicy Lady Sigma studies behavior instead of speeches. She pays attention to what repeatedly drives a person's decisions. Over time, she begins to see the invisible strings behind their actions. The wisdom here is simple but profound. People can hide their intentions. They can disguise their motives. They can carefully choose their words. But eventually, everyone follows their deepest need. And if you want to understand who someone really is, do not just listen to what comes out of their mouth. Watch what they constantly chase. That pursuit often tells the truth long before they ever do. Number 6. Give them exactly enough rope. One of the most surprising truths about manipulators is that they often do not need an enemy to bring them down. Given enough time, they usually do the job themselves. Most people make the mistake of exposing a manipulator too early. The moment they notice something suspicious, they rush to confront them, argue with them, or warn everyone around them. While that reaction is understandable, it often creates an unexpected problem. The manipulator becomes alert. They become more careful. They start hiding their tracks and adjusting their behavior. The spicy Lady Sigma takes a different approach. She understands that people reveal far more when they believe nobody sees through them. Instead of interrupting every lie, she observes. Instead of challenging every contradiction, she listens. Instead of rushing to prove a point, she allows patterns to unfold naturally. Think about someone who constantly exaggerates their achievements. At first, their stories sound impressive. People are fascinated. They gain attention and admiration. Most people would immediately challenge their claims. The spicy Lady Sigma does not. She watches that as time passes, the stories become bigger. The details stop matching. The contradictions begin piling up. Eventually, people start noticing the inconsistencies on their own. What looked convincing at first starts falling apart without anyone needing to force the issue. That is the power of giving someone enough rope. People who are driven by ego, deception, or manipulation often struggle with self-control. They keep talking when they should stop. They keep pushing when they should pull back. They become so confident in their ability to fool others that they stop noticing their own mistakes. The spicy Lady Sigma understands that truth has a way of surfacing when given enough room. This does not mean being passive or allowing harmful behavior to continue unchecked. It means recognizing that constant confrontation is not always the smartest strategy. Sometimes observation is more powerful than accusation. The deeper wisdom is this. When people are desperate to prove who they are, they can maintain the act for a while. But when they are left alone with their own habits, their real character eventually steps forward. The spicy Lady Sigma knows that patience often reveals what arguments never could. And many times the strongest move is not exposing the manipulator. It is simply stepping aside and allowing them to expose themselves. Number 7, never fight the story. Change the incentive. One of the most misunderstood parts of dealing with manipulative behavior is the belief that truth alone will fix everything. People assume that if they explain clearly enough, defend themselves strongly enough, or present enough evidence, the situation will correct itself. But in reality, many conflicts are not solved by better explanations. They are shaped by what people gain from continuing them. The spicy Lady Sigma understands this early. Manipulators often build small stories around situations. They twist details, exaggerate emotions, and frame themselves in a way that keeps them at the center of attention or control. If you try to argue directly against their version of events, you often end up feeding it. The more you fight the story, the more energy the story receives. Instead of wrestling with narratives, she looks at something deeper. She looks at incentives. What is this behavior producing for them? Attention, power in a group, emotional reactions from others, a sense of control? Because once you understand what someone is gaining, you understand why they continue. For example, imagine a person at work who constantly creates confusion by spreading half-true information. People react, argue, and spend hours trying to correct them. The attention they receive becomes the reward. Even if the information is corrected, the cycle continues because the incentive has not changed. The spicy Lady Sigma does not stay trapped in that loop. Instead of trying to out-talk the story, she changes what the behavior produces. She withdraws emotional reactions. She limits unnecessary engagement. She stops rewarding the pattern with attention, urgency, or conflict. Over time, the behavior loses its value. When the reward disappears, the behavior weakens. This approach requires discipline because it goes against instinct. Most people want immediate correction. They want clarity right away. But wisdom often works differently. It focuses less on winning arguments and more on removing fuel. The deeper truth is simple. People repeat what rewards them, not always what is right. The spicy Lady Sigma understands that control is not about arguing better. It is about changing the system so the behavior no longer makes sense to continue. Number 8. Never reveal the exact moment you see through them. The instant a manipulator knows you understand the game, they simply change tactics. One of the most dangerous moments in any interaction is not when you discover manipulation, but when the other person realizes you have discovered it. The spicy Lady Sigma understands this difference clearly. She knows that awareness is powerful only when it is controlled. The moment you expose your understanding too early, the entire dynamic changes, not always in your favor. Manipulators are not fixed in one method. They are flexible. When they sense resistance, they adjust. When they feel watched, they become more careful. When they realize their patterns are recognized, they do not stop. They evolve. This is why revealing your insight too soon can work against you. For example, imagine someone who constantly tries to subtly influence your decisions. They may use guilt, selective information, or emotional pressure. At first, their approach seems natural, but over time you begin to notice the pattern. Most people, once they notice it, immediately call it out. They say things like, "I know what you are doing," or "I see through this." It feels empowering in the moment, but what often follows is not resolution. It is adaptation. The manipulator becomes more careful. They stop using obvious tactics and switch to quieter, harder to detect methods. The game does not end, it simply changes shape. The spicy Lady Sigma takes a different path. She allows her awareness to remain invisible while she observes more. She does not rush to announce what she sees. Instead, she studies how far the pattern goes, how consistent it is, and how the person behaves when they believe they are still in control. This is not about deception. It is about timing and control of information. Understanding something does not always mean you must reveal it immediately. There is strength in quiet awareness. There is power in observing without triggering unnecessary change in behavior. The deeper truth is this. Once a manipulator knows you can read them clearly, they stop revealing themselves naturally. You are no longer watching the real pattern. You are watching their response to being watched, and that is a completely different game. The spicy Lady Sigma understands that sometimes the most strategic position is not exposing what you see. It is continuing to watch while they still believe they are unseen. Number 9. Manipulators fear records more than arguments. Memories can be debated. Facts, screenshots, emails, and documented agreements are much harder to escape. One of the biggest illusions people fall into is believing that strong arguments will protect them. They think that if they explain well enough, stay calm enough, or speak confidently enough, they can win any conflict. But in reality, arguments are often flexible. They can be twisted, denied, or emotionally reframed. The spicy Lady Sigma understands something more grounded. Words can be disputed, records cannot. Manipulators often thrive in spaces where everything is based on memory and interpretation. In those spaces, details become blurry. People remember things differently. Conversations get reshaped over time. And suddenly what actually happened becomes less important than who tells the louder story. But when there is evidence, the entire dynamic changes. A message cannot be easily erased from context. An email keeps its timeline. A screenshot does not forget. A written agreement does not shift based on emotion. These things do not argue back. They simply exist. That is why the spicy Lady Sigma values clarity over chaos. For example, imagine someone constantly changing promises in conversation. One day they agree to something. The next day they deny it ever happened. In a verbal environment, this creates confusion and doubt. But once things are documented, the pattern becomes visible to everyone, including the person trying to deny it. What makes records powerful is not aggression. It is stability. They do not get emotional. They do not get defensive. They simply preserve truth in its original form. The spicy Lady Sigma does not rely on memory when dealing with people who distort reality. She understands that calm explanations are not always enough when facing someone who benefits from confusion. So, she chooses structure over assumption, documentation over debate, evidence over emotional back and forth. This is not about being suspicious of everyone. It is about being prepared in a world where not everyone respects clarity. The deeper wisdom is simple. Arguments can be reshaped, stories can be rewritten, but records remain fixed. And in situations where truth matters, what is recorded often speaks louder than anything that can be said. Number 10. Flattery is often a tool, not a gift. Some praise is genuine. Some praise is a fishing hook designed to lower your defenses. Not all compliments are meant to uplift you. Some are designed to position you. The spicy Lady Sigma understands this early. She does not reject praise, but she does not automatically trust it either. She listens carefully to what is being said, but she pays even closer attention to why it is being said. Genuine praise feels simple. It is direct, balanced, and does not demand anything in return. It stands on its own. But strategic flattery often has a different texture. It feels slightly too precise, slightly too frequent, or slightly too focused on lowering your guard in everyday life. This can be very subtle. For example, Someone might repeatedly praise your intelligence in situations where they are about to ask for a favor. Or they might highlight how understanding or special you are right before steering the conversation in a direction that benefits them. The words sound positive, but the timing reveals intent. The spicy Lady Sigma notices patterns like this. She understands that flattery can be used like a soft entry point. It is not always about honesty. Sometimes it is about access. When a person is praised enough, they tend to relax. When they relax, they become more open. When they become more open, they are easier to influence. This is why she does not allow praise alone to build trust. Instead, she looks at consistency. Does the behavior match the words? Does the respect remain when there is nothing to gain? Does the tone change when she says no? These are the details that expose intent more than any compliment ever could. A fishing hook is not obvious when it is first thrown into the water. It often looks harmless, even attractive, but its purpose becomes clear only when it is tested. The spicy Lady Sigma understands this principle in human behavior. She knows that not every kind word is kindness, and not every compliment is connection. Sometimes flattery is simply a strategy wrapped in polite language. And wisdom is knowing when to receive it, when to question it, and when to let it pass without attachment. Wisdom is not in reacting faster, but in seeing clearer. After going through these ideas, one truth becomes very clear. Dealing with manipulative behavior is not about loud responses or emotional battles. It is about awareness, patience, and control over your own actions. Life will always have people who try to influence situations for their own benefit. Some will use words that sound convincing. Some will create confusion. Others will rely on pressure or emotional pulls. But the spicy Lady Sigma approach is not to get trapped in every game that is offered. She observes instead of rushing. She studies instead of assuming. She responds only when it truly matters. In many cases, she lets actions reveal what words are trying to hide. Over time, patterns become clearer than promises. What stands out most is that power is not always about confrontation. It is about understanding how behavior works and refusing to feed what is harmful. When attention, emotion, or energy is no longer given to manipulation, it begins to lose its strength. There is also a deeper lesson here. Not everything requires a reaction. Not every situation deserves a response. Sometimes the strongest move is restraint. Sometimes silence is not weakness, but clarity. A calm mind sees what a reactive mind misses. And a patient observer often understands more than someone trying to prove a point. In the end, the real strength is not in out-arguing people or proving them wrong. It is in outgrowing situations that once had power over you. It is in choosing peace over chaos and clarity over confusion. This is the essence of the spicy Lady Sigma mindset. Not confrontation, not warnings, but quiet intelligence that allows truth and time to do the work. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.